Hi, hi, Alex. We see you. Our committee members are still coming in, so we'll get started shortly.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Caroline would like to roll.
Yes. Andrew Wheeler.
Here.
David Burkhart.
Here.
Jeff Nico.
Here.
Linda Marquez.
Here.
Form.
Great. The next item on the agenda is public comments. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda. There will be time for public comment for agenda items. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak?
There's none.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was October 20th. 2023, which was a very short meeting, other than the tour. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Well, second.
Okay, motion moved by David Burkhart, seconded by Jeff Nico. Andrew Wheeler.
Yes.
David Burkhart.
Yes.
Jeff Nico.
Yes.
Linda Marquez.
Yes.
There.
Okay, then moving on to our first piece of new business, the announcement of committee member terms and vacancies.
Oh, do you want to do the opening report?
The what?
The opening report?
Oh, it's not on my. It's not on my agenda. But let's do the opening report.
No.
That's me? I have nothing to report. Was I supposed to prepare something?
Good report.
It's not on here. If it's not on here, I don't know what to do. Okay. Any public comments on the chairperson's report? No?
No.
Okay, moving on.
Trying to take exception to some of the things that were on there.
Do you? You want to lodge a complaint?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay, now moving on to the announcement of committee member terms and vacancies. Is that you, Caroline, or is that?
Yes.
Yes, great.
Yes, that is me. Thank you. My name is Caroline Hernandez, clerk of the board. And this item is presenting the announcement of committee terms and the vacancies. We have at the moment currently 4 active members. We started a year ago with 5 members, and Rahma Torre, unfortunately had to resign partway through the year. So that's left us with 3 vacancies. So currently we have 3 vacant seats and 4 filled seats. We have 2 members whose terms, whose 4-year terms expired December 31st, 2023. And this is an oversight on my part. These are the things that I usually keep on top of. And normally I would have sent Andrew Wheeler and Jeff Micko an email asking for your desire to renew your term, for a new 4-year term. And I did not do that, but at this moment I am putting you on the spot.
I would like to renew my term.
Great. The new term would start obviously January 1st, 2024, and then run through December 31st, 2027.
I'll put that in my account.
Oh, likewise.
Wonderful.
No pressure.
No pressure. Great. So yes, so I would like to just restate that Andrea Wheeler and Jeff Micko are confirming they would like to renew their term for another 4 years, ending December 31st, 2027. Next steps would be for the board to approve the reappointment. So we'll put it on as a consent item. It'll go to the board January 25th for approval, and then I will follow up with you, just notifying you that your term has been approved.
Yeah, just a question.
Mhm.
So that still leaves 3 openings,
Correct.
and is the authority open to, I'll be, since I'm kind of the recruitment person, still.
I would say the recruitment officer.
Okay. I'll be, hopefully I can recruit through the fence and,
Oh, yes, the fence post.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, volunteer newsletter, yes.
maybe some, I would love, I guess we would love current volunteers to step up.
It could be anybody, but yeah, I believe that's how Linda became aware of the vacancy. So yeah, it's a great pool to tap from, and we would love it if our current volunteers, because they obviously they've seen our work on the front lines. So that would be, this might be compelling for them to learn about it on the back end.
And,
Yeah, we love that.
So when I send a note to Gavin, Terry,
Yeah, Gavin, I think Gavin or Kat, I think would be your point of contact.
thank you.
Mhm.
Another suggestion is Vicky Alexander is on the board.
Yes.
She's also in the League of Women Voters in my league. You might want to tap her, or I can tap her for a recruit.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and I would hope that all the committee members work their networks.
Yeah. So I'd be happy to tap her. She's the one that tapped me to get me here. I'm turning the tap.
That's wonderful, thank you. And the application is available online, but I'm also happy to email it to the committee members so you can forward it on.
Oh. Okay, questions or comments? Public comments, any public comment on this item?
There you go.
All right, moving on to the next item of business, which is the the election. Gosh. We just didn't really come prepared today. So we have to re-elect our committee officers, the chairperson and the vice chair for this calendar year.
I'll second that.
What are you saying?
Re-electing the,
We have to take nominations.
Okay.
We have to take nominations. So, do I hear any nominations for the position of chair?
I nominate Andrea.
Does that require a second?
It does.
I second it.
It doesn't.
Well.
Any, and then, I accept the nomination. Are there any other nominations anyone would like to make for the chair? We can nominate more. Should we do the election for chair and then do the nominations on for vice chair?
Correct.
Okay, so, well,
Check this. Okay. Linda made the motion, David seconded. Andrea Wheeler,
yes.
David Burkhart,
Yes.
Jeff Nico.
Yes.
Linda Marquez.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. I'm actually enjoying this whole stuff. Good. We enjoyed you. And then in the role of vice chair, I'd like to nominate Dave Burkhart for re-election.
Second.
However, I will say that next year I will not accept the nomination. Someone new, rotate.
Somebody say who's had experience as vice chairman. Yeah.
Let's keep that.
Andrea Wheeler,
Yes.
David Burkhart,
Yes.
Jeff Nico.
Yeah.
Linda Marquez.
Yes.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this item?
There's none.
Is there any public?
We have our auditor,
Okay.
with us through Zoom, but no one else.
Okay. All right. Item number 3 is the presentation of the 2022-2023 Measure Q and Measure T annual audit report and the 2022-2023 annual expenditure plan status report. Leah, I think you want to introduce.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure this afternoon, I think it's barely this afternoon, to introduce Elisa D'Angelo, our staff accountant, who is helping in many, many ways during Justina Teen's leave of absence. Elisa has been with the authority going on 6 years now, I think this year, and has always served in the background to support this committee, but you're getting to see her face to face, I think, for the first time today in presentation. Thanks, Elisa.
Thank you, Lee.
Can I just ask, are you okay with people asking questions as you go along? Or would you prefer people to hold their questions to the end if they have any?
Maybe hold in to the end.
Like, comment that Not all the things that Justine said about us are necessarily true.
Yeah, we're worse than she makes us out.
My name is Lisa D'Angelo. I'm the staff accountant. Good afternoon, committee members. Today we are presenting the results of the authority's independent financial audit for the Measure Q and Measure T funds for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. As required by the expenditure plans, the role of the committee is to review the expenditures annually to ensure they conform to the plan and to submit an oversight report. The financial audit is one key component to assist with the review of these expenditures. The report consists of the independent auditor's report, the balance sheet, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances, and the accompanying notes. The balance sheet on page 4 of the audit report shows the available ending fund balance for each fund. The statement of revenues and expenditures on page 5 details the revenues we received, including any interest as well as reimbursements and grants leveraged against the projects. Here with me today is a representative from our auditor's office, Alexander Hom of Moss, Levy and Hartsheim. He will briefly discuss the audit standards and approach taken and present the audit results. And with that, I'll hand it over to Alex, joining us by the phone.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Hom from Moss, Levy and Hartsheim, and we gave the Measure Q, Measure T financial audit a modified clean opinion. The processes we did throughout the audit were pretty much status quo in terms of how we usually approach the audit. You know, we look at 25 regular check transactions. We looked at 25 payroll transactions. We looked at 25 high-risk area transactions, meaning credit cards, employee reimbursements. We looked at and then part of the financial part of the audit, or the actual balance sheet portion of the audit, we actually looked at any capital asset additions, transactions, and to make sure that it followed all the processes and everything like that for the authority. There's no significant findings. Everything looked good. Justina and Elisa have a very good grasp of the system, and you know, they make my life easy. So does anyone have any questions regarding the audit processes, what we looked at, or any of that regard?
I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question. What do you mean by a high risk transaction?
High risk transactions are usually just areas that are usually just have a higher risk. I usually try to avoid the word, but it's higher risk of potential fraud. And that's usually like with governmental entities, it's usually just credit cards and employee reimbursement. So we look at 25 separate from what the normal check runs are.
So the programs themselves aren't high risk. It's just
the type of transaction, yeah.
Exposure to.
Okay. Yes, correct.
Okay, at this time, if we don't have any other questions for Alex, I was going to let him go so we can continue the meeting.
Or just quick, what are
Okay.
the 2 categories of high risk? With credit card transactions and
Employee reimbursements.
Okay. Thank you, Alex, for joining us.
All right, thank you. Have a good rest of the day,
You too.
everyone. All right, bye.
Okay, next on the agenda is the presentation of the annual status report. On December 14th, 2023, the board received the annual expenditure plan status report for fiscal year 22-23 as part of the reporting requirement for the expenditure plan. Today, we are presenting a copy of the status report as a supplemental item to the independent financial audit for the committee to conduct an independent review of the revenues and expenditures for both Measure Q and Measure T. Before we begin over the numbers and the project statuses, we would like to review how the report is laid out. The report consists of 4 major sections. Section 1 is a narrative to include a summary of the budget and work plan development process, audit process and findings, charts to show expenditure broken down by major expense categories. Section 2, the EPC charts to include percentages, how to read project detail sample page, a list of projects completed and on hold, added outside services used if applicable. Similarly, on each project detail page, the expenditure overview table will show which funding sources were used. In section 3, it provides more information about the urban grant program, the process of solicitation and award, and summary on the balances remaining. Section 4, for the EPOC and administration costs, each year the board approves an allowance for administrative costs. This section provides the breakdown of the types of expenditures Measure T paid for this fiscal year. And Appendix A acts like an index to easily locate the page number of the project ID. To recap, the authority received $7.9 million in parcel tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. The agency recorded a total of approximately $6.4 million of expenditures for Measure Q and T approved projects and grant disbursements. Additional information about major project categories, the breakdown of the expenditures by these categories, as well as the budget versus actual for each parcel tax fund, can be found in section 1 of the report. Section 2 of the report summarizes all of the active projects funded by either measure in the reported period. Projects are grouped by expenditure plan categories, and there's a sample project detail page to quickly show how to read the project. To give a committee a sense of the number of projects staff is working on and tracking, 52 projects and 31 urban space grants were funded or reimbursed by Measure Q or T funds in fiscal year 22-23. Of the 52 projects, 7 were completed on or before year end. Through the chair, can I answer any questions on the status report?
Yes. Let's start, do you have some questions? Jeff, do you have questions?
Nothing.
Okay, I actually have quite a few questions.
Okay.
Or comments, if that's okay.
Uh-huh.
If anyone thinks of any questions or follow-up questions, then please jump in. I'm looking at my notes are from the status report. I know they're a little bit different than what's in here. So on page 8, it gave the revenues for Q and T. And the Measure Q revenues were $12. So is it gonna go to 0? Is it just gonna like trickle forever?
Yeah, I think that has to do with the county and any that didn't come in.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be 0.
Is 8 million about for Measure T? Is that like about what the annual revenues, is that in line with our typical annual revenues?
Yes.
Because it must be pretty predictable at this point. So under expenditures, the expenditures are quite low. They're like half of what was planned originally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So was there any particular reasons why that ended up so low?
This year in particular, land acquisitions were lower than, it's really hard for us to know exactly what's going to be coming through the pipeline. And this particular year, there were not any significant
And it seems
purchases.
Even payroll costs were quite a bit lower. There's another place, so like on page 11, major expenditures by expense category, payroll and benefits was like about 3 million, and was expected to be about 4 million. Was there any reasons for that?
I do know that when we're doing the budget process, it is kind of anticipated what projects are going to be worked on, and then the actual projects may differ slightly when they come in.
I did notice a lot of the projects seem to have, they were delayed this year for different reasons. So does that mean that payroll goes down? I mean, aren't people staffed or? is
It just could mean that they're working on different projects, which could be funded by different sources.
But then the total payroll would still be the same. It seems like there's $1 million worth of staffing that didn't happen this year. Does that mean people left?
Does it include contractors or other, costs? Other direct costs?
The payroll should only be our staff, and it could be that we do have a few open positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can
Yeah,
offer a little
please.
assistance, through the chair. True, we had vacancies that we didn't fill immediately, and when we do budget, because you don't know which positions will fill in what order. And then occasionally, unexpected departures, we budgeted for all of the vacancies to be filled right at the beginning of the year. So
yeah.
people may be a little inflated in that way. And therefore the discrepancies, we slowed down in hiring. And right, other opportunities present themselves during the year. So sometimes the things we plan project wise are not the things that we are able to spend quite as much time on. But what you're seeing in the payroll is simply leaving vacancies open longer.
Okay, so not a planned reduction in staff, just.
Right.
Just work out. Yeah, and then similar question is about outside services. The budgeted was 2.5 million and we spent 800,000. So, any particular reasons for that,
I would just say the same, depending on what level the project thought that they were going to be getting to, it could mean that they didn't quite meet that milestone.
I did notice a lot of projects got delayed this year, so I can see where.
Yeah, they were dealing with a lot of
Like
weather.
services,
Yeah.
Okay, so, my other things are really not, they're just comments that I kind of asked, in reading it, so they're not actually really financial, so you're not on the spot. These are just little comments about the, some things that I read, so on page 44, and it talked about the acquisition of the Bay property donation. And I just was curious, I didn't see that publicized. I follow the authority on Facebook, and whenever I see open space land that's been acquired and protected, I always repost it, but I don't remember seeing anything about that. It looked like, did it happen in this calendar, in this fiscal year?
It was completed in this calendar year.
Yeah, that's cool. That's all I want to say.
Okay.
But, if they tell our Facebook social media team, like if they post stuff like that, I always repost it because, part of my goal is to always be pumping up the authority and look at all the great things that we do. I have a little comment that I think that we shouldn't use the term Coyote Ridge. We should be using Mayan or Yakima, and most of the, I think all of the projects that were related to it are still being called Coyote Ridge. I had a question about, and again, these are not financial questions, so I think I'm not putting you on the spot. But, we talk about in the EPC section, a whole bunch of properties that aren't open yet, but they say things like available, docent-led tours. Are those tours that are only by request? Because I went trying to find like if there was a list of dates, and I only found a couple dates like in January for some things, but are there like dates that get planned, or is it just by request?
It's a little bit of both. We have, as our volunteer and education team, they go by VEDS for short. As they plan their calendars for the year, those dates become publicized, sometimes in chunks, a little bit ahead of time. They don't necessarily say in January, publish an entire calendar of events, but those do become available from time to time. They are also our educational team led by Terry Rogaway. is open to requests. You have a group that would like to come out and hold a particular, do a docent-led tour, an educational event. They're open to those capacity permitting.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little both.
Okay. And then, so just in general, like this was the start of kind of a list of, I don't know, I forgot to count how many properties that we've acquired. You have acquired. And since it's under EPC, I'm assuming these are all properties that are intended to be open to the public eventually. They're not just lands for conservation or riparian corridors and things like that. Is that correct?
Through the chair, TBD. We don't always have that determination made when the acquisition is completed. They could be on a long list of properties that we'd love to open to the public, funding willing.
Yeah.
But so you wouldn't be able to tell just because it's on the list of acquisitions if we intend to or can open it to the public necessarily.
So that actually is my next question is, I'm assuming there is some tentative roadmap of ones that either, yes, this is gonna get open, but we're just not there yet, or these are ones that are gonna be under consideration in the next round. And then especially with Mayan or Yakima kind of ramping down, I'm guessing there's probably like some next. So are there certain ones that are like, okay, these are ones we're now working on, or we're now in consideration of things like that?
The perpetual question, right? What comes next and where are things on the list? It's something that staff actively debates and is working on. In fact, we're working on a land acquisition strategy to formalize a plan for the next many years of what are we looking to acquire, what should open. So in conjunction with a strategic plan of acquisitions, strategic plan around capital improvement projects that could lead to opening properties or perhaps improving properties that are already open. So those things are being looked at, but we don't have a published list of here are, for example, the next 5 properties to open. There's so much to consider. There's so many variables.
Yeah.
We have not published such a document.
So I think what I might request to put on our suggestions is that in the next report, there be a section about the process at least of, okay, here's our process of how we, like what you're talking about, you're developing, how do we assess lands to acquire? How do we assess lands to open? If we do just like open it, what's like the general approach that we take? Because I think it's, you know, from a transparency point of view, it's a little bit unfair to the taxpayer. Say, well, I helped you buy all these lands and the idea is I'd be able to hike on them someday. And it doesn't seem to be happening. And I think that there should be some transparency about that, you know, in the report.
And remembering too that the main mission of the authority is to protect our natural resources, and recreation is you know, where recreation is compatible.
Yes.
Just to your point about, you know, what our intention is, but
I think that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
But I think it also would be helpful to put
Yeah.
it in there and say, so keeping in mind
yeah,
that our first goal is protection and our second is to make it available as appropriate.
right.
Here's our process for deciding. Because it is weird that you have all this, when you read this, it looks like, well, you have all these lands you want to open to the public, but they're just sitting there, and like it might make it clearer of this, even things like this land is at this time intended to be for conservation, for, you know, animal corridors, for whatever it is. And this land will be in consideration for opening to the public, but you know, just a little bit more clarity for the public to see where that's going.
I think it's gonna be you said it's a complicated algorithm.
Yeah,
And if you were to, you know, write it out, I think, you know, it's fallen in a too long, didn't read category. But I think Andrea has a point on maybe an explanation. when I first got involved with OSA, I thought that every bit of land that they managed would someday be titled. And I'd love to hike all the land, but, you know, not, you know, to clarify your first commandment is to
Right.
protect and preserve.
So what I'm hearing is maybe a little bit about our philosophy.
Yeah.
There are, I'm sure, properties on the list that maybe aren't appropriate at all for the public to be on all
Yeah.
the time. But understanding that and having some kind of a little overview of the philosophy and perhaps making it a little more public regarding some of these properties, what the long-term intention is.
I get it, you're gonna have to be really vague.
Yeah.
You don't wanna make any.
Very high level. It's just gotta be very high level.
Yeah, but at least I think that will help give clarity of, you know, what the intentions are and some of the, you know, you might list some of the factors that go into. This is what we consider when we decide whether we might open it fully to the public and things like that.
And maybe some examples, you know, for instance, everything will come down to cost. It's gonna cost more than it's than expected value. If HP said, oh, we've got 500 acres we can give to you guys, you know, that are adjacent to some other open space. It's yours, you just have to manage it. That's probably less. But if it's on land that's difficult to manage, probably no. So, you know, it's maybe some of the past acquisitions. You know, I'm sure high-risk lands, the whole Coyote Valley Forest, right? So that's a.
Yeah, and if you said our goal, our priority right now is Coyote Valley, that's understandable, but
Sure.
it helps to know.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. We'll see what we can do about bringing some information back. You know, maybe it's a information.
But I think it needs to be in the report to some extent, because the report is that public facing document that someone might go and look. And like I said, when I'm looking at this and I just see this list, it just looks like they're all intended to be open or they were acquired with the intention to be open. That part is a little misleading. And so I think we need to make clearer in the report of, hey, we don't necessarily acquire land for open.
I was gonna say, that's because when I first joined, I thought it was all about the 4, you know, where we get on that 5, right? I don't even help also because I think on an image bubble, this is what we're doing, like Spreckles, for example, trying to recover that water, right? And aquifers, right? That's because people say, well, what are you doing with it? There's nothing going on. No, there's a lot going on, and this is why we're doing it. The corridors, right? You know, bring up the fight over the cemetery that's trying to be proposed, right, smack in the corridor.
Right, and I appreciate helping see the point of view of the public is probably looking at what the recreational
Sure.
availability is going to be when in fact there are many priorities we've got to balance. So we can look at how we can position that and maybe add language to the report.
Well, and actually, when I read the definition of EPC3, it's projects categories under this program include planning for and opening new space preserves, designing, constructing new public access facilities, and providing environmental education programs. I think if there's projects, if there's land preserves that you've got an EPC3 that you're like, it's very unlikely we're going to be planning for and opening new spaces here, move it back into number 2, which is about conservation. Does that make sense or not?
It does. I'll have to read through all the details to see what makes the most sense for classification. But again, I appreciate the input and we'll take a look at that.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing I want to ask about, again, not a finance question, but I kind of curious, the volunteer program seems like it's growing, and I'm curious like what is new things are happening in this calendar year for the volunteer.
I'll take that.
Thank you.
We don't have a representative from the volunteer program here, obviously. I would say the short term biggest priority by far is wildflower season at Mayano Yakman.
Yeah.
Right, so they do have plans beyond that, but through March, April, depending on the weather and what Mother Nature deals us for wildflower season, it's all about docent-led, safe hiking and a very sensitive habitat in its first year of being open. So that is priority number one, is wildflower season at Oyakma.
Yeah. Okay, and then one last thing, which is, I think, a finance question.
Okay.
No.
I remember we heard about this last year, but I don't remember the details. It was, it's the Tilton Ranch Complex Home Improvements.
Through the chair, what page is that on?
Oh, 84. Remember something about this, like, in part of the acquisition was that we got a house with it or something. Is that what this is? And so what's happening there? What has to get done?
Lee can expand, but I believe that there are some retrofitting done to the property.
That's correct. So in order, we want to bring the house up to code certainly for use by our staff, potentially by the public. The planning process for that 60 acres has not occurred yet, so we don't know how the house will be used. But there's some basic things like some electrical work that needed to be done, some basic improvements for earthquake safety that are all underway through this project.
Okay, this is not a historic structure, this is just a current.
Yeah, I don't believe it's considered a historic structure. Parts of the home, I believe, are old, but not my area of expertise, so I don't want to misstate anything. Neither in the age of the house or the repairs.
So we're not trying to restore it into like a museum or something like that.
Correct, we are not, because we've not done that planning process and know how the space will be used.
So this isn't dissimilar from the property at Alcoa, right?
The house there is actually employee housing. We
Right.
rent it out. So it is different, actually. We're not using, nor do we intend, pardon me, to use the house at Tilton for employee housing. It's actually pardon me, we use the property for meetings, generally outside. And obviously doing a lot of work out there, we've got a bit of a reporting station in the outside buildings.
So
yes.
It's a facility, right?
A little bit, it's a little bit of a couple of things while we're figuring out how we want to use it, and hopefully in the next couple of years through the planning process which will, require some public input and the like, so. Takes a little while.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's training, we have training there,
Yes.
orientation.
Yes, and we did the volunteer appreciation out there as well.
Appreciation out there too. Yeah, I've been.
Yeah,
It's old, it's like 1920s, I can't remember how old that ranch house is.
that sounds about
I think it
right.
was like in the 1920s it was built.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building, actually.
All right, I have no more questions. Did anyone else figure out that they had any more questions?
No, those are good questions. Good discussion about years.
Okay, any public comment on the presentation? Hearing none. Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so, we're moving on to item 4, which is the Oversight Committee tasks, which is picking the transactions that we are going to review. Or
My first time doing this.
Oh, yeah, so yeah, okay. So we have this giant transaction list. Which you guys can share that copy and David and I can share this copy. So, okay, I'm forgetting how we did this last year. We only had 3 people last year.
I think, correct, I think, Linda and Rockma had just
Yeah, so
appointed.
I didn't participate in that one. right?
Or we were in the queue for being appointed.
So it's just Damien, Jack, Dave, you did a labor one, and you're gonna do that again.
Yes.
And so, did we do a full 12 transactions last time? I don't think so. No, I don't.
We did 9.
Yeah, that sounds right. Because I think Jack and I each picked 3. Does that sound right?
Maybe 4.
4. Right, and you just did one of the labor ones, because you're still working on the process there. And I think the nice thing about. So we picked 3 out of, 1 each out of. So where did it go? I pulled it out, I thought okay, so the 4 categories that we usually look at are acquisitions, land improvements, open space preservation, maintenance and operation, and then other transactions. And so, if we each take 3, because you're working on the labor one, and that one takes more work, you're kind of working on the process still. Is that correct?
Mhm.
So, so where's the list of transactions by?
Well, as far as the one for labor, what we did the last time was to pick the project that had the greatest labor hour. So I think we could do that again.
Okay.
So maybe you can help us identify which one that is. So
Yeah, that's the one.
these are just.
Okay, so in exhibit B, is acquisitions MQ. How do we tell again which ones are which?
At the bottom of the transactions
Oh, I
list,
see. Oh, I got this upside down. That's like it's going backwards. Alright. Alrighty.
Lisa, is there other guidance you can help to orient the committee members? Because I noticed we're flipping through the books, but I'm not sure that everybody's understanding what they see.
okay.
Yeah, so you made a recommendation, someone did. 2 land, 2 open space, 2 maintenance, and 2 1,000 or more. That's 8. Divided by between 3. So we'll probably have 1 extra of those.
Okay.
But where can we tell which ones are purchases and acquisitions?
In the actual report.
It's at the bottom,
So
right here at the bottom, you see at the bottom here, like the middle acquisitions land.
page 1 through page
Oh, these are the labor ones. that you're-
20 are the labor.
Yeah, that, okay, now I understand. Those are all the labor ones that you're gonna pick up.
And then starting at 21, it will have acquisition costs.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so this first part's all labor? the
Yeah,
first part?
yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
we go to this page here, right? Page 21. Okay, got it.
And CI energy is. And then off. And then 1,000. There we go. Okay. So how should we go?
Yeah. That's the title, right? Yeah.
And then I can't remember, you usually. Oh, usually pick. We kind of just pick what we're going to, I think we usually pick one with a pretty high cost. And then just one that we're happen to be interested in each of the categories, right? I have to be very particular what's in the categories, right? So,
Is there a chance, I'm still having trouble getting a list of projects named within each
Yeah, 'cause
category,
Yeah, Project 88 is,
and I can't find it in the materials that we have.
Caroline,
Sorry for not being.
no, see, it's a lot of information, but I think we can help you out. Caroline, is it possible to display the list of transactions?
Even appendix, the appendix that you spoke of, which has a list of the project.
Yeah, because I could, the project could be renewed.
Right,
Project number. and-
Right.
like,
Right, and I think it depends on how you want to approach selecting something. If you wanted to look at, for example, highest dollar amount, it wouldn't matter so much which project, but if you really want something from project 1, 2, 3,
Mhm.
then we probably have to cross-reference from the status report. Get that number and then select it from here, but when we get down to the list of transactions, they'll give us just a minute to pull it up so that we can maybe show you right on there.
But that's helpful, just, but that's just one category, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So this list that you're looking at is, right, just a list of the projects.
Is that in here? Is that in the report, right?
it's appendix A of the status report. It's of the status report, not of the transaction.
Oh, the
Sorry.
status, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Here's the-
Right, right. Yeah, it's in the status report, so that's why it's in fine.
What page is it on the status report?
appendix.
Let's do the appendix.
It's 1, I think.
That's it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So. Mhm. So like here's
This is actually, yeah, right, this is what you've got on the screen. Has the project number, it's got the which EPC number it refers to or corresponds with, I should say, and then the project name, as well as the dollar amounts expended in case any parts of that, and then it tells you, well, the page number refers to the status report, but not the transaction list report.
Right.
So if you wanted to, for example, focus on a particular project, you'd want to start here and then perhaps we can help you find a transaction. But as defined, let's see.
well, I think we go the other direction though.
No.
So we each need to pick one each from 3 out of the 4 categories, which are acquisitions, land improvements. So the land improvements, they're labeled as CIP, I think. Is
Yes,
that correct?
yes.
Yeah, and then ops is opens, and then it's 1,000. So, like if you wanted to pick one of the high dollar, and they're in order, so like, the line number 2 under, CIP is the, 431,000, that's the largest amount of that one.
And Madam Chair, are you looking at the transaction list right now?
Look at this.
What page are you on?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at
Transaction.
page 25.
Oh, okay.
There we
So
go.
this is a land improvement cost, because it's labeled CIP. And the highest dollar one, I think that's line 2 of that, which is 431,000, right? No, I think I'm missing page 22 because I don't have like the highest value on acquisition.
The highest acquisition was only 8,818 this year.
Right, okay. So that, yeah, so.
I think you're just thinking that they,
Stuff this
yeah,
year,
with the donation and, yeah.
So, we don't have to get super, at this point, it's pick one in each of transactions from any of the 3 of the 4 categories. And it doesn't matter a lot, because, Even if it's not a huge dollar amount, it also is very interesting to dig into some of the different ones, so. Yeah, so you can cross-check it to the projects to see what the project you're interested in.
Actually, on the transactions, not on on the labor, but on the transactions, column H is going to be the project.
Oh, right here, yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna take line 7, the Bay property donation, because I'm interested in that.
Okay.
Which one, which page are you on now?
21,
Oh, back to 21.
Which project?
it's the Bay property donation.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Okay, I see what you're doing.
So that's like my first choice.
Okay, I got you.
Let's go. Oh my God, there's so much paper.
So which one, they, oh
Lisa?
yeah, okay, I'm sorry, there it is.
So this is from the acquisitions category. I picked project.
On these figures on exhibit B,
Mhm.
these are the direct, these are the labor costs through. And that includes overhead.
It includes
I'm gonna go.
benefits and taxes.
So,
Which cancel transaction?
and then I would
Line
need
7.
a
On
report
page
on
21.
The labor hours. Per, not labor hours per category, so not per individual, but for.
I guess it's.
What am I trying to say?
Yeah, this is done by dollars, so it's not done by hours.
So we
So
don't necessarily have to pick something really high, right?
Last year we had a.
You can,
Breakdown
but
by
that's
the
what you
dollars
want.
as well.
I was saying,
Per-
is number 8 appropriate?
Actually, I actually had two, I had per actual employee and then actual title.
was that done after you had selected your project?
It was,
Through the chair, if I may.
Yes.
So we are in a public meeting and the public would very much appreciate following your conversation. We've got 3 conversations going. So if we can focus on one thing, maybe at a time, would be helpful, not only to the public, but to the staff to make sure that we're getting exactly what you need.
Okay,
Thank you.
why don't we focus on our transaction selections first and then come back to you. Okay.
So just to recap, you picked Bay property, right?
Yeah, so
Is number 8 appropriate to review?
they're all appropriate,
Oh, okay,
every one of them.
okay, I'd like to pick number 8 because I'm interested in the Tilton.
What,
Is that one that you want to do?
one you chose to pick it after you.
No, we just each have to pick from 3 different categories.
Yeah, 2 have been selected now. So if you are comfortable doing 2 out of each category, you have selected 2 from acquisitions.
Yeah, but we can't pick 3. I think we're.
You can pick 3.
3 transactions, so we're gonna have some overlap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you mean 3 transactions per person or 3 per category?
So we're not gonna end up exactly with 2 per category. We'll have at least 2 per category. Because we just don't have an even number of people, and more than 3 is a lot, right there.
So if I identify a project I'm interested in, then I have to know that transaction, like I'm interested in the funds that,
No, which project are you interested
let's just say, Highway Valley. Open space for land, the, 87.
So the thing is that P87 may have transactions in different categories.
Yeah.
So just find one that you're interested in.
Okay,
That
so I could go through here and
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just playing out well.
P87 is going to be in operations costs. A lot.
bunch of projects.
believe the operating, I believe all of the transaction sections are arranged by highest expense first.
Yeah.
So my recommendation maybe would be going to that section, starting on page 1 with the highest cost, most impactful costs, and then skimming the list for that project number.
Okay.
What is OSA internal under $100,000 costs?
And what page is that on, Chair?
Page 162. I don't think this is. These aren't $100,000 transactions. These are.
No, they're greater than 1,000.
Oh.
Sorry.
Man, like 6 months. Oh, so what is OSA internal on page 162, line 3 and 4?
That is our project 0, which is kind of our G&A
No, you are.
project.
I'm gonna take on 163, line 17. Project G 00052, Bay Area Older Adults Grant.
And then you have, you can take it one. I have picked one. Well, you can pick the other two. All right, then you can look at them.
Oh, okay. But I'm gonna pick my third and then we'll have another one.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Oh my gosh, there's so many ops costs. Oh my gosh.
You want one from each category, is that what you were asking?
Well, you should each choose one for 3 different categories.
3 different, okay, got it.
We'll just kind of get covered.
Sorry.
It's so many ops costs and none of them are more than $8,000. No, that's not right. There's one for 64. What is COVA operations?
Um, Coyote Valley Acquisitions.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I'll go ahead and take, number 10 on ops cost of 45, that would be the volunteer program.
I'm sorry, what page are you?
I'm at page 45,
Okay, and then what line?
and it would be line, 10. Which would be volunteer program.
Okay.
This is a good idea. These are so boring. I want to know about a gas powered log splitter. Okay, I'm gonna take page 47, ops costs, line 27. The Sierra Vista Bridge abutment repair and trail improvement. Okay, so I have 3. I took this one. Here this stuff. Okay, so when we get to,
I have to.
okay, so you can have my package.
I grabbed that package. Thank you.
Yeah,
I would use all my paper up at home to print this thing.
I feel so terrible about printing it.
No, I'm glad somebody did.
Okay, so I have an acquisition and ops and a other of over 1,000. We just need to make sure we get one that's in the category, at least one in the land improvement category.
Which is that one? What would be land improvement?
Those are CIP costs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, here, I missed one.
I missed the page. There we go. Yeah, there we go.
And then through the chair, what page is that?
It's what,
Which page?
for the one that I picked?
Mhm.
The last one I picked was on page 47.
Oh, okay.
And it was line 27.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome. I've got it.
Okay. So my third one is on page 25 under CIP cost. And it would be number 5, Coyote Valley Conservation Areas Master Plan outreach. Take that one.
It's a good thing we're all about conservation here. Put all the paper.
Recycle.
It'll be for the public record, so we'll keep it.
That's awesome. It's just.
Are we ready for our third selection? Round or maybe we could talk about the labor request.
So I picked ours,
You have,
and then Linda has.
right?
Yeah, have you picked the three?
Yes.
So which three?
Oh, which three?
An acquisition on page 23. On the far left column, it says 17, but it's clear. Or is that not the line number?
On page 23?
22.
Oh, sorry. Balance hydraulics.
It's kind of what the- Yeah.
This is the second transaction for SWCA. I just wanted to verify it. Did you want to look at two?
It kind of doesn't matter, because it's what we're looking for is more about process,
Okay.
particular to the project, you know what I mean? So like, we're still analyzing different aspects of the process.
Okay.
It was page 45. It's a little bit similar to maybe, but it's that's one reads.
45,
Yeah.
3.
Line 3.
Don't focus on it.
Sophia Zander for 8,225.
So with those selections, how many do we have that are acquisitions?
I have 3 acquisitions.
Then how many that are land improvements
I have 2.
and operations
3.
and other transactions?
1.
So we're lacking on the other transactions, but I feel like that's okay. I think we're getting the coverage we need. If everyone's comfortable with that, just hearing them, this original plan was back when we had like 6 people doing this. So I think we have our transactions selected. So Caroline, do you want to explain, especially for Linda, like what happens next?
No. That was my question.
In terms of the oversight report,
Well, what gets sent to us next?
Yes.
Okay.
So we will prepare a binder for everyone that gives all of the background data for all of your transactions, including resolutions if they're like board approval, the Acumatica details of the approvals and the purchase orders, as well as invoices for you to go through and look through. And then there's a cover sheet that you will walk through the cover sheet and make sure you'll check each box. The cover sheet is actually the last one.
Can you explain what Acumatica is? You may not realize what that is.
Acumatica is our accounting software.
Oh, okay. And can you explain just a little bit about like the difference between like there's purchase orders and invoices, what are the different documents that we
Sure.
tend to see as we go through this?
I can
process?
finally answer something.
I just want to know.
So purchase order in Acumatica is our way of capturing approval by those in positions with spending authority. So Acumatica knows how much each position has, and it will go through to make sure that it captures all the way through board approval if necessary, depending on the dollar amount. And then once it's approved, staff can like take the invoice that they've received from the vendor and put it through Acumatica, showing that this purchase has been vetted and it is approved to pay. So the difference is the purchase order is the approval, the invoice is the actual what we pay to.
I got the binder last year. You did send me the
Oh,
binder
okay.
last year.
Okay.
So I do know. I flipped through, I got an idea. If I have questions, I mean.
I'm gonna give you my email
Yeah,
address.
you read mine now.
Yeah.
You read mine.
You're gonna find that the checklist goes in the order of like kind of what you're checking for. So you look for the first, I think, let me see what it is like. Yeah. It just kind of goes in order. You'll see, like, I can't explain it. It just kind of works. And you're kind of looking for, like you said, the purchase order is first and it has some kind of approval and you're checking that. And then you see the invoice against the purchase order. And yeah, and then the payment to the, matches the invoice and the payment was made to the correct vendor. So you'll kind of follow along, but I'll give you my email and when you go to work on the first one, feel free, you can even get on the phone and talk about it.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Like I said, I flipped through it last year, so I have an idea what you're talking about.
So now Dave needs to talk about, he's gonna do the review of the payroll expenses. So are you picking a transaction? Is that what's working? Okay.
It would be 28.
Okay.
Maya, Yakima. Labor for last year. I did it for the year before, so it's, and it's got a variety of folks working on it from top down, so.
And then, I'm sorry.
So the binder will have the same information that we got previously, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and everything, like the other costs, dollar costs, it's really gonna see signatures in there that things match. And it's pretty much a matter of do the reports match, and everything add up, with the exception of one kind of subjective thing. Talked about this before. Will, for instance, if it's you would expect a certain mix of people involved in a certain phase of a project. In the beginning, it's designers and maybe some top level staff folks. And then towards the end, it's administrative. That's when the vets get involved. There's some in front, it's not like there's none, but the mix changes.
Correct.
And then so it's just when a layman look at it and say, okay, this makes sense. There's this many people working here, and you don't have like if you're at the end, if you have like grant people charging hundreds of hours. So anyway, that's.
Do you have a template that you're starting to develop that, you looked at it last year, like?
Yeah.
Are you?
I think just enough.
I did include the I kind of revised, I believe that you were talking to her. It hadn't been finalized before she left for leave. And that is, yeah,
It's good.
okay,
Yeah, it was just. Works.
Okay.
Okay.
And so part of what you'll come back with it, you have any recommended changes to that for the next time?
correct.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have our transactions selected. Is there anything else that has to happen under, tasks? Agenda item number 4.
I don't think so.
I think we have, the only thing I will say is, as you offered your email address for assistance to the committee members, after today, we've done elections. We have a little bit of updating to do on the roster with terms, but obviously chair and vice chair stay the same. But this will also include your contact information. So Caroline will make sure that she distributes a refreshed roster to all of you, so you can talk to each other if you have a question. Don't want a quorum, so one-on-one if you have a question about a transaction. Elisa is your point of contact in lieu of Justina. Justina probably will, depending on when you want to meet again to discuss the transaction, she may not be back. So Lisa's going to be your point of contact if you have a question. If we can help you with setting up a Teams meeting, a Zoom meeting, between two of you, let us know if we can assist your meetings in any way. I know you're working independently this time as opposed to in pairs. And I think that's all I wanted to say, other than binders will come to whatever address you provide for us to send it to, and you'll should have everything you need.
And I just want to say, since we're working independently, like in the past, we had more people, like 2 people would do the same transaction and then compare the results and sometimes kind of figure things out. So if you're working on it and you're like, I'm really not quite sure if I'm doing this right, just come with your question to the next meeting, in your sheets, and then we might clear it up together. So don't hesitate to come with questions. Because sometimes you're working on it and you're not really sure, you're like, oh, this doesn't seem to match. But then we come here and we talk about it, we realize it does match or whatever. So don't hesitate to come with questions.
Okay. And in the next meeting, we will have the project manager for your transactions available here. So if you have a question about what is this, what does that do, they'll be here as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so if we're done with item number 4, is there any public comment on this item? See, I wrote it down on my public comment.
There are none.
Okay, can I suggest tabling item number 5 to next time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you, any of you mind appointing the person to write, the subcommittee to write the report? Hint, I'm gonna offer at the end, so unless you just want to vote, but otherwise we can talk about it next time. Sure. Feels like this has been a big meeting. Yeah. So do we need to take a vote to table it?
As long as there's a consensus among the group, there's no discussion, then yes, we can table it.
Okay. Okay, so then moving on to the informational report. Thank you very much. Wasn't that fun? General manager and staff.
No updates for you at this time. I did just think of one thing that probably would be good. We can do this by email, but I'll plant the seed. How long would you like to be able to review transactions? And then we'll get another meeting on the books for all of you. I think we're looking for at least a month.
I think it's like a month after we receive the binder.
Perfect.
Yes. Sorry, joking, yes.
I was wondering if it would be appropriate to update us on Justina.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry I didn't queue up a picture of her beautiful daughter. Helena, I want to make sure I got it right. Who is now, let's see, was born in October, 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, giving mom and dad a run for her money, for their money.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, she's doing very well, and we hope to see her back in approximately a month.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Any committee members have any informational reports? I have a report. It's really muddy out there these days on the trail. Just FYI.
Well, some of them are closed, right?
Yeah. Anything else? Any information reports? Any subcommittee reports? Nope, no subcommittees right now. So we will get the packets in the mail and then maybe wait when we get the packets, maybe we can actually pick the date for the next meeting to, just because the sooner it's in the calendars, the better.
Yes, and then do you like the daytime meetings? Do you prefer the daytime meetings or something we can switch back to an evening meeting as well?
Prefer daytime.
Daytime.
Daytime. Personally committed on, Wednesdays and Fridays.
Okay, good enough, thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, then we can adjourn. Thank you. And thanks again for lunch.
Yes.
All right.